I'm the dude. So that's what you call me.
Are you a virgin?
Yeah, not since I was 10.
Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret.
Come on to the coast. We get together, have a few laughs.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Can I return it if it doesn't fit?
It always fits. Eventually.
Welcome back, movie minglers, to our 15th episode. I'm Maggie.
I'm Caveman.
And today we are going to be discussing the critically acclaimed and insane horror film Get Out.
Get Out. I love this movie.
I have never seen this movie until today, so I have a lot of emotions.
I have to say, these kind of movies where I'm sitting next to you while you're watching them for the first time, I really enjoy it.
I bet. You got to see how often I was trying to hide my hands, hide my ears. I covered my ears a couple of times because there were some sound effects that I just couldn't handle. Ugh, stop it. Stop it. I don't like horror movies. I don't like scary films. I am not a person that seeks out horror for really any reason. It has to be an extraordinary film for me to actually want to sit down and watch it.
I would say the kind of the closest to a horror film that you would watch is probably something, or scary. I shouldn't say horror, but like kind of traditionally scary or in the realm of horror, like What We Do in the Shadows would be an example.
So horror comedy.
Horror comedy.
Yeah,
is
especially heavy on the comedy. Is how
That's
I get my
jam.
spooks,
because it's always lighthearted compared to other horror films, like especially the guys from What We Do in the Shadows, the movie,
and the TV show.
Sure, but specifically the movie.
The movie. So that or like Slither, some of which was an early James Gunn thing. Again, comedic. Horror comedy. That's my niche when I want a little bit of spooky. The other way I get my spooky is from like true ghost story TV shows. My Celebrity Ghost Story especially. Oh my God. Or like Ghost Hunters. Those types of shows I really love. And that's kind of where I go to get like my spookies on. And also podcasts. If you like spooky podcasts, I can definitely recommend Tell Me a Ghost Story and Scary Mystery Surprise. They're two really wonderful little ghosty podcasts that I love, that also happen to be hosted by one of my oldest friends in the world. So check them out for sure. But anyways, I don't really do horror.
And we do have quite a
there's
few
so many
horror films coming up.
I have asked a pal of mine who is a horror aficionado to come watch The Shining with us because he knows all of the history of that movie.
Well, since we're talking about horror and we're talking about The Shining, that episode of The Shining is coming out this October.
Yes, it is.
And to celebrate October, we have 2 other horror films that we're going to be watching that are not on this list that will be bonus episodes to celebrate the month of Halloween, or month of October for Halloween.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about those, and we'll talk about what those episodes will be on a later episode.
But getting back to Get Out, it was a lot. That movie's intense.
The movie is intense.
And I'm just going to go ahead and get this out on Front Street. As a liberal white woman, I was very uncomfortable. But not because I'm a liberal white woman, but because I could... Oh, God, how do I say this without sounding like an ignorant asshole? Oh, God, I'm just going to be just like the people in this movie.
Right.
Oh,
I think that's
Christ.
Jordan Peele's point.
I know, and I'm not uncomfortable because that point was made and has made me feel uncomfortable.
Right.
I'm uncomfortable because, like, I hate seeing people in really awkward situations, especially like that. I don't know.
I hate being around or watching people like them talk to anybody that way.
Yes. Any race, any sexual orientation, anything.
Yeah,
just
anything.
The way that, like...
The way they kind of...
it's condescending.
It is condescending. That's the word I was looking for.
It's somehow progressive racism. In that, like, they feel, like, these people feel like they're on the right side and that they're doing what's best, but they can't help but say, like, really awful shit to Chris. And, like, so, I don't know. Like, the movie was an uncomfortable watch for that reason. But also, it's an uncomfortable watch because it is so fucking tense the entire time that I kind of felt like I was having a panic attack a couple times. That movie made me so fucking anxious. This movie is fucking tense. and I felt it in a visceral way, and I didn't enjoy that. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't want to watch this movie.
You didn't enjoy the movie? You just didn't enjoy the feeling it gave you?
No, the movie is incredible, but I hated how I felt watching it. And because that's half the movie-going experience, it kind of definitely, lent to how I now view this film. Is it masterfully made? Absolutely. It is an incredible watch. The script is great. The acting's all really good. I need a palate cleanser, and I need it so badly because I'm just so uncomfortable.
Well, before we get really into it, let's start with the
synopsis.
The skin and bones of this, the bare bones. There we go. The bare bones of this film, meaning who made it and why is it so special. But before we get to that, we're gonna do our. Not that this is
no, it's
tradition.
not tradition.
Not every episode, but occasionally when we record, we do like to.
I could use it anyways.
Enjoy, yeah, especially after a movie like this. We're gonna enjoy a shot of whiskey.
A shot of whiskey. Cheers, honey. Yeah, get out.
Oh boy, oh boy.
So, here at Movie Mingle, our podcast production setup is a little rinky-dinky, just to put lightly. Obviously, as things progress, we are updating all of our technology and everything that we use. But I do want to just give a shout out to Caveman, who got me just the best Mother's Day gift, which is a proper office chair to sit at while we record. Before that, I was using a plastic IKEA folding chair, which was not very supportive and or comfortable. And so as a gift, he got me a really nice office chair with great lumbar support. So thanks, honey. I love it.
I sat in it not too long ago, and it's nice.
It's so nice.
It's nice.
It's the little things. So thanks, Shapoopy.
Of course, I love you.
I love you too.
So, Get Out was written and directed by Jordan Peele in 2017. This is Jordan Peele's directorial debut, and what a debut to go on. I still think it's his best film, and we'll get into his others possibly in this podcast, but we're definitely doing Get Out sometime next year.
There's something out here.
Yeah, nah.
No. Mm-mm.
Nah.
No. Nope.
Hell no.
Speaking of Jordan Peele, I would never have thought that the silly goofball I used to watch on Comedy Central's Key and Peele even had this kind of talent. I mean, he's a very talented comedian.
He's a talented writer.
Actor. I think he's hilarious.
Because he wrote,
he wrote all that, but that was all like
skits and
like
everything.
really slapstick comedy.
Well, yeah.
The silly goofballness, even though he's a talented comedic writer and always funny, always usually the funniest guy, between him and Keegan-Michael Key.
You think that Jordan Peele is funnier than Keegan-Michael Key?
I do.
Oh, wow. I
think they're both pretty silly. I think Jordan Peele's the better actor.
Really?
Yeah, Keegan-Michael Key is
Keegan-Michael
fun.
Key is better at playing characters that are close
fun,
to Keegan-Michael Key.
But every time he's in a movie, I'm like, he's just the same.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a lot of range. I think
you're right.
I think Jordan Peele has more range.
So I have watched Key and Peele quite a few times. It's a very easy binge, and it's very funny. And I don't want to compare the two because I feel like there's no reason that we should have to, because they're both excellent artists at their crafts. But you're right.
I still love Keegan-Michael Key.
Jordan Peele's characters were a lot more memorable than Keegan-Michael Key's. Like, for instance, Megan. Megan's the girl that's like, you're supposed to bring my jacket. I need my jacket. You're going to take your jacket. No, I don't want it now. Like, she was just the world's worst girlfriend.
Yes, her.
And,
yes.
I mean, that character is diabolical.
Yes.
In how she thinks and how she keeps her boyfriend, like, attached to her.
Yeah.
And, honestly, some of, like, the best creepy characters from Key and Peele came from Jordan Peele. Like some of like the most just insane.
So we should have known.
We kind of should have known, because I think that when you watch Key and Peele, and of course off the top of my head, and a shot of whiskey and a couple beers in, I can't remember all of them, but like I feel like they play very well together. But I think if you're looking for like the creepier, very bonkers weirdo characters, it was more Gene Peele than Keegan-Michael Key. Yeah. But it's not that Keegan-Michael Key couldn't hold his own. He's amazing, and I'm always happy to see him and stuff. He was great in Schmigadoon.
He was great in Schmigadoon.
Like, he had good range. He's got a great singing voice. He was garbage in Wonka.
I think
Wonka kind of called for like garbage acting.
I think, I think he's definitely typecast because, like I said, his range really isn't that
His range
broad.
is a bit more comedic versus Jordan's, which can be whatever he wants.
Whatever he needs, whatever he wants. So I think Keegan-Michael Key gets chosen for a lot of roles that fit him.
Yeah, but when Keegan-Michael Key is angry, like when he's the substitute teacher with Aaron, and he's getting progressively more and more frustrated by all the kids not responding to their names, quote unquote, watching him get angrier and angrier is a thing of beauty. The way that man can just transcend sanity to insanity is beautiful. So I'm just saying they both have their pluses and weaknesses. I don't know.
I'll just say that I feel like Jordan Peele is one of the best horror directors in the last decade.
Sure. I mean, who else has been doing it half as well?
He's directed 3 films, and all 3 are amazing. And some are better than others. Like, I feel like, to me, it's Get Out, Nope, and then Us. And not that Us is a bad movie, it's just not as good as the other 2.
So I've seen half an hour worth of Nope, I would say.
When did that
I feel
happen?
like you were watching it once, and I sat down and watched part of it with you.
Do you remember anything?
I remember them dealing with the guy that came over to the house to put in all the electronic equipment. I feel like I've definitely seen some of the scenes at the ranch, like the Dude Ranch, or the circus or whatever.
Horse ranch.
Yeah, the horse ranch.
Yeah. You mean Stephen Young's place?
Yeah, Stephen Young's place.
It's
I've seen bits and pieces of it.
Western
theme
park.
You might have fallen asleep to it one night, and I came home and like left it on for like 20 minutes while
sure. Sounds like
went about my business. So like I'm just saying that like I've seen parts of it. It's a good movie. All of that to say, it's a very good film.
Well, I'm just going to continue. The music in this movie was composed by Michael Abels. This was Abels' first movie as a composer. He has since composed Jordan Peele's other 2 movies as well. So they obviously have a relationship.
The music, although I can't... Well, the only kind of like song that I can really think about is the one that starts and ends the movie with the chanting.
The bookend song.
I couldn't tell you about the rest of the score, but it added to the paranoia I felt in that movie. Like, I couldn't tell you an expressed theme of any particular character, but holy shit, did I feel it in my bones. So he was a very good composer.
It definitely added to the ambiance of the film. The director of photography was Toby Oliver, who has been working since the 90s, but not on anything that I really noticed or have seen or stood out to me as part of pop culture or anything. And nothing super big. I'm sure there might have been some films on his filmography that people have seen and like, but nothing that really stood out to me personally, except for a couple that he's recently done. Happy Death Day, which I still haven't seen, but I am constantly told how good it is.
Yeah, that movie is kind of, I think, more of a horror comedy, right? And I've heard enough good things by people that I respect.
Right.
But
just sitting down and watching it, like, I will do it eventually. It's on my long list. I have a short list and a long list, and it just hasn't come over to the short list yet. And then the other movie that I have seen was a terrible film from Netflix called Day Shift with Jamie Foxx.
Isn't that a
so
vampire
bad.
movie?
It is a vampire. It's like Vampire Monster. it's worse than Bright. If anybody ever saw Will Smith's Bright on Netflix, oh boy! And this one of my favorite actors that I'm so glad Jordan Peele has used more than once was Daniel Kaluuya. I love his acting. He is actually another one of those actors who has now played 2 Marvel characters, or has been in 2 Marvel properties.
Well, he was in Black Panther.
Yes.
And
he played Hobby Brown in Across the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah.
Bit of advice: use the palm, not just your fingers.
What's up with your suit? Is he bleeding from his armpits?
Oh,
I absolutely
man.
love
Fucking
that character.
Spider-Punk is
Spider-Punk,
everything.
Yep. I can't wait.
Oh, we get to talk about him soon.
We get to talk, yeah. That movie, Spider-Verse Across the Spider-Verse is coming up. I believe our next episode is Ratatouille.
Yeah.
And so then we have 3 live-action films after that. And then, of course, the 4th one being another animated, which I believe is Across the Spider-Verse.
And we're also entering into Nolan Fest 2024.
Yes.
Where I think every other movie we watch for a handful of movies is a Christopher Nolan. We've got 3 coming down the pike.
Yep. Christopher Nolan, then another movie, then Christopher Nolan, then another movie, and then Christopher Nolan.
So a couple things to look forward to in the future.
Nolan Fest 2024.
Pew, pew, pew,
Be
pew.
there.
Daniel Kaluuya is also a director. He directed his first film last year, another Netflix film. This one was called The Kitchen. Really good movie. It scored high on Rotten Tomatoes from critics and kind of scored low for audience members. So obviously a little divisive, but I recommend people should watch The Kitchen from Daniel Kaluuya. It also stars Allison Williams,
which this might be the first thing that I've seen that I liked.
Probably no. I've only seen her in 2 movies. This and Megan, the Chucky type movie
Chucky
with
robot?
the AI robot named Megan. She was the mom.
You mean M3gan?
M3gan, yeah. She played the mom of her daughter was the person who gets to be terrorized by M3gan. And then, of course, I can't forget you've got Catherine Keener and Bradley Whitford,
who are just sublime and national treasures.
Because of this movie, I don't think I can look at her character in 40-year-old Virgin the same way anymore. She's so creepy in this movie.
She is terrifyingly good in this film. There is a way about her, because like Bradley Whitford at least kind of acts like the dad, like he's very much puts on the dad
like I could
show.
see he kind of played the same character than he did in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, except a little more racist.
Yeah, well, and less of a horn dog. But yeah, like Bradley Whitford plays a great embarrassing sort of like
the embarrassing
flighty, awkward, always kind of
so
saying
cringy.
the wrong thing. Yeah, the cringy dad. Bradley
Whitford. This
Whitford.
is elevated to 11. How cringy! Everything he says.
That Obama line. And
I love how. I mean, in the moment when you're watching it, I mean, you have to admit, we have to let our listeners know, because we're going to be honest. You at least knew. You knew the kind of the story beats of this movie.
Yeah, I had Wikipedia the plot forever ago.
So going into it, you kind of knew everything.
Yes,
that was
I
happen.
did. But even, which is weird. So like, first of all, watching the beginning, knowing that spoilers. I guess if you haven't seen this movie and you're not gonna
like every
see it,
episode we've ever done, we spoil the hell out of everything.
Deal with it. But if you don't say that, they yell at you. In the beginning, watching Allison Williams and what's his name, Chris, Daniel Kaluuya's character, Chris.
Yes, Chris.
Watching Rose and Chris interact, like I knew she was going to betray him, but after a while, I kind of forgot that and just leaned into what great chemistry they had, because they had incredible chemistry.
They did, yeah.
So like knowing what I knew about the film, I was leery of all of the characters and picking up on all those little things kind of instantly, but it didn't take away how fucking good they all did.
Yeah.
And how creepy it all was.
Jordan Peele wrote Rose's character so well.
And Allison Williams acted the shit out of it.
Yeah.
the cross between like Rose is the good girlfriend and then Roro like the bad devilish woman.
I even wrote it in my notes on how impressed I was on the actress going from his partner and
his caring
confidant
partner, friend,
and everything,
lover.
Supporter, everything that she was doing
to just stone fucking cold.
Probably one of the scariest characters in the whole movie.
Yeah. Just knowing that she's done this so many times and feels no remorse, it's insane.
And how stone-faced she goes.
Yeah.
But
you were one of my favorites. Yeah. But anyways, Bradley Whitford, just going back to it, he's an incredible actor.
I mean, The West Wing.
He will forever be my love, Josh Lyman. Oh, God.
I love that character so much.
If only Josh Lyman actually existed and could help this world today. If only all those characters did.
Fortunately, nobody in The West Wing is a real person.
I know, and it's sad. But, and Kathleen Keener, I will always love in things. You think of her from The 40-Year-Old Virgin, but I think of her from Hamlet 2, where she plays the ex-wife, and she's just ridiculously pitchy in that film, and it's amazing.
Caleb Landry Jones played Jeremy, the brother.
Who was...
such a creep.
Such a rat-faced little ginger weirdo.
Like the moment he shows up, I'm like, I can't wait for this guy to be taken out.
Yeah, he made me so deeply uncomfortable, but he seemed like he was the only one in the family that didn't want to be doing what they were doing, or it was at least struggling with it, with his alcohol abuse, and I don't know, the way that he's kind of...
He might have been dealing with it,
yeah,
using alcohol and drugs, but at the same time, he looked like he was enjoying it as well.
Yeah, well,
He might have been bored with it a little bit. He seems
equal
like the kind of kid who grew up killing small animals.
Yeah, but he also seems so indifferent, or like just...
There were parts where he was reluctant.
He felt reluctant.
A little bit. Just because he spends a lot of time in the background looking bored or tired or depressed.
Or like a tiny little ginger rat.
But if his face looked familiar, the only other thing I think I've seen him in was X-Men First Class, where he played Banshee. Completely different character.
I think none of us are sad that Banshee never came back, really.
Yeah, I wasn't begging for a Banshee.
No, I didn't want to see Banshee Origins.
A Banshee origin story, which could have happened if Wolverine Origin was good.
Oh, God.
And then finally, a few more guys that really stood out and are just fantastic actors in everything they do. You got Lakeith Stanfield, who we've seen and talked about before when we did Knives Out, but he's in just the best movies.
I've never seen him put a bad performance on screen.
He's always great.
He's so much fun.
One of Lakeith Stanfield's best performances is, and I don't think I mentioned it in Get Out, which, sorry, but...
Knives Out.
Knives Out. This is Get Out. Wow, the whiskey. Was the movie Sorry to Bother You. Fantastic film. Please watch it if you haven't.
I personally love them in the Western The Harder They Fall, which had a predominantly African-American cast.
That was
such a good fucking movie.
Good movie. Sure.
A little, before the fall of Jonathan Majors, but he was incredible in it. But everybody's fucking incredible in that film.
That movie is fantastic. That's another...
fantastic. What a great Western.
Have we talked about that one?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
No.
We might do that one as a bonus episode just because of how good it is.
When they go to the White City and literally everything is white, like the buildings and everything, fuck that. I laughed so hard.
That's a good one.
It's a great film.
And then you got Stephen Root.
Who, how do you not love everything?
One of the best
he's
character actors.
Dale, man.
Every time he's in something, I'm like, yes, Stephen Root.
What's your favorite Stephen Root character?
I mean, I just made a Office Space reference, and that's pretty great.
I don't care if they lay me off either, because I told Bill that if they move my desk one more time, then I'm quitting. I'm going to quit. And I told Dom too, because they've moved my desk 4 times already this year, and I used to be over by the window and I could see the squirrels, and they were married, but then they switched.
I'm mixed between Dale from King of the Hill and his character in Dodgeball.
A really quick random Stephen Root story is, I just remember one of your old coworkers, we don't have to mention from where.
Oh my God.
Her mom was an actress that had a sex scene with Stephen Root. Yeah, That was a wild story.
God, I don't even remember that girl's name. I'm sorry to say.
That's
I
fine.
vaguely remember where we worked together, but I remember the Stephen Root mom sex scene story.
Every time I see Stephen Root, I always think about your old coworker and that story.
Mom.
And just this actress mom had to do it. Which, yeah, I love Stephen Root.
Who doesn't fucking love Stephen Root? Apparently he was a gentleman, you know?
Yeah, well.
Which I'm
mean,
glad for.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
About any actor. And then finally, Lil Ray Howery as pretty much the main comic relief of the movie.
So I recognize him, but I don't recognize him. What? Like, he's a comedian?
I believe he got his start as a comedian. This movie rocketed his career, and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he had a following before this movie, but this movie was definitely the thing that
he was in Free Guy.
Yeah,
which he was the buddy.
The buddy
His
in
character's
Free Guy.
name is Buddy. Oh no, he was in Vacation Friends, right? He was the main like character in Vacation Friends, the ones that meet John Cena and remember that movie Vacation Friends with fucking John Cena and him, and it's like the black couple and the white couple, and they become friends on vacation, and things go to fucking hell.
Yeah, and now there's a sequel too.
Yeah, which apparently was terrible.
He was also in the sequel to Good Burger. I'm just saying, like, he's been in stuff.
Yeah, so he's been in things that
like
we've seen.
if you look at his IMDb, he wasn't really in a lot of big things before Get Out, and then after Get Out, it's just project after project after project. So because of Jordan Peele,
well, he's the best part of this movie, and that he's the light of this movie. Every scene with him made me happy.
Also, one of the first needle drops of the movie that I immedately, as soon as I heard it, I was just like, yes! And that was from Childish Gambino, his song Redbone from his album Awaken My Love, which, of course, I have on vinyl. But
fucking of course you do.
Of course I do.
That's a casual drop.
I have 3 out of 5 of Childish Gambino's albums. Anyway, really happy to hear that song. I love Childish Gambino and Donald Glover. Get Out is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Of course it is, with a 98% from critics and a 86% from audience. Many Jordan Peele fans would say that Get Out is their favorite. I know people who would say now that Nope is, and that's fine. I completely understand. It's usually Us is usually on number 3 all the time. Not that, like I said, not that it's a bad film. It's just not as good as those other two. And
look, there's again, like, we don't have to compare, but there's always going to be a weak one.
Of course,
yeah, especially in a trilogy.
Get Out also won an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay, which this was when Jordan Peele won this. He became the first African American to win original screenplay from the Academy Awards. Get Out also won another 152 awards, and it made $250 million at the box office worldwide.
Which, good for them.
Yeah, right.
Like,
and
I mean, horror movies are so cheap to make.
Right.
and so any profit is just profit.
It made another $15 million at the home box office.
Gosh, of course it did. I mean, we own a copy. That's how we watched it.
That's how we watched. Yeah, we did.
And the fun thing is that before it, they popped up trailers for that god-awful Tom Cruise The Mummy movie. Because back in 2018, when I'm assuming that DVD came out, they thought that maybe that would be a thing, and we could be sitting here talking about the fucking
the Universal Monsterverse.
Yeah, the fucking Monsterverse
that they tried to do once with that
The Mummy.
Well, no, even before that. Or the original Mummy, are you saying?
No. I thought that the Mummy, the Tom Cruise Mummy, was the first one to come out.
That Dracula movie that originally came out. Oh yeah,
like Dracula Untold. Luke Evans.
Luke Evans, I think, played Dracula. No, I think you're right. Yeah, that and that terrible scream that Tom Cruise makes in that trailer. We open with Lakeith Stanfield's character getting kidnapped while he's walking around a suburban neighborhood, setting the tone for kind of how this movie is, with the message it's trying to
get across
audiences. So Chris and Rose are on their way to her parents' house for the weekend. It's the first time that Chris will have met Rose's parents, and he's nervous about it because it starts off with, "Do they know I'm black?" And she's,
"Oh boy, they do.
Do they? Yes, they do." But in the moment, this movie covers a lot of Chris's insecurities, whether it's the way white people view him, or which is, I mean, obviously it's very founded in this movie, but in the moment when you're watching it, Rose seems to be very comforting and being like, "Dude, chill out. Like, they're not the people that you think
they're
they
not
could
racists.
be. Yeah, they're not racist," is what she eventually says in so many words, but never actually says.
And somewhere Ron Howard pops up and goes, "They were in fact racist."
Yeah, they were in fact racist. So on their way to their parents, they hit a deer.
That was uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it came out of nowhere, like deer do, and it's like in the middle of their conversation, so you're not ready for it.
No,
it's great. It's a great first kind of jump scare for a horror movie.
Didn't like
Get you in the mood for it, and then the slow reveal of what it actually was. Just being a deer, but just how long it takes to actually find that out, because he himself is nervous about what he's going to see because his mother died in a car accident by being hit by a car, a hit and run. Yeah.
I kind of thought at the beginning that somehow the deer was going to come back, and like that's where they were putting the brains of the people they were stealing. Like they put them into deer, and that deer had been somebody. Yeah, like I kind of thought that that's where the movie was going, because even though I had read the plot years ago, it's been a while.
Sure.
So like I knew the basic points, but not all of them. So I was like, holy shit, is that deer a thing? Like, is that where Lakeith's brain is? Is Lakeith the deer?
This, of course, they feel like it's an emergency, that they need to get somebody to help with the deer, so they call the police instead of the cop says you should have called like animal services or whatever. But it also serves as a scene to show, I think, a racist cop, even though they don't actually say that.
No, the implication.
It is implied that
racist.
Yeah, him asking for ID from somebody who wasn't driving.
Yeah, who was just
like if you're in a car accident, they don't care. They're not going to look at anybody else's ID except for the driver's.
Yeah.
Unless they find like guns or drugs in the car, and then that might be a different story, but that was not the case. They get to the house and are introduced to the parents. Of course, Bradley Whitford's character is awkward and cringy, and at first you're like, oh, he's just that awkward dad who's trying to be overly friendly and overly jokey, and a white guy who's just trying to cover up his own insecurities, and
his own prejudices, and a lot of uncomfortable moments during not just meeting Chris for the first time, but then giving him the tour of the house. It gets even worse, and then like you said, when the way he kept calling him my man,
and the way he, of course, like you said, the Obama comment.
Oh, it's just so.
Yeah. Between Catherine Keener and Bradley Whitford, my way of remembering their names was Daddy Dean and Mama Missy. Dean and Missy. And the moment when Daddy Dean takes Chris into the kitchen and he says, he's talking about his mother.
His supposedly
dead mother. Yeah, supposedly dead mother. Loves the kitchen so much. We keep a piece of her in here.
Yeah,
then it shows the woman that you eventually find out is his actual mother's brain in this woman. Which, I mean, the whole
I
whole
didn't
thing with
realize that it was a legit brain transplant. I thought that somehow it was like a soul transplant. That's kind of what I had been expecting, and then I don't know why a brain transplant seems less plausible than a soul one. I don't know.
I thought it was just people being hypnotized for one consciousness to go into another.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too, but I guess that would be a...
It was actual... I'm going to take part of your brain and put it into your head.
Was it a full brain transplant?
It wasn't a full... No.
Partial?
He explains that, like, the part that is being taken out of one and put into the other, not all of one guy's brain is being put into all of one guy's head.
Yeah. It is
both of them, it's like two brains in one skull.
Yeah. Which is how, like, Lakeith's character could
come back when he gets a flash from the camera.
Did you notice how his eyes changed when that happened too?
Yeah,
that was a really good
almost like
touch.
the flash is staying in his pupil.
Yeah, and then kind of slowly fades out into real eyes.
Yeah, real eyes, and then
that part was played very well.
Yeah, well, Keith Stanfield's a fantastic
He's so
actor.
amazing and so cute.
But yeah, him talking about his mother being in the kitchen. But we think she's dead, but literally his mother's in the kitchen. Yeah, I
Georgina.
I love
the character's
just
name.
that really kind of you think at the moment it's just a throwaway line. Mm-hmm. We keep a piece of her in here, but yeah, going back and seeing it a second time, you're like, oh my god.
She was so creepy, anyways. That character.
After their first night of eating and meeting Jeremy and him being an asshole and trying to get him into talking about wrestling and how he's got the physique and the DNA, not the DNA, but the
body type.
He used a different word. But,
genes.
Yeah, essentially, you've got the right genes to be a fantastic athlete if you worked on it, and him then just wanting to put him in a headlock and. Chris is like,
almost like he was just ready to just get it over with.
Yeah, right. Like, let's just do it right now.
Like, oh god, why do we have to play this game?
Yeah, there's like 6 steps to this process, and he wanted to skip to step 5. Creepy character. You automatically dislike him just for the way he's acting and treating Chris, and
for his ginger rat face.
Ginger rat face is a great way to put it. And then after dinner, when Chris and Rose are upstairs, Rose is just feeding so much extra ideas into Chris's head about the family, getting him a little more paranoid and feeding into the insecurities that he already has. I know we're kind of going beat to beat of the story, but I think it's because I really like this film and Maggie was just kind of could barely write down notes.
I wrote 9 notes. I wrote half a page of notes for this movie because at a certain point I had to put the book down because I not only did it feel like taking notes was taking me out of the film, but also just because I was so tense and uncomfortable that I just couldn't handle then trying to analyze it at the same time, right? Like when we watched Whiplash, we had never seen it. We were able to take copious notes. Same with Parasite. I was able to take copious notes, even though Parasite made me so uncomfortable. But there was something about this movie that I just had to put everything down and either focus on the screen and actually watch it, or focus entirely on my notes and not pay attention to the movie. So I opted to go with watching the film,
which I'm so happy you chose to watch it.
And again, it's not that I dislike this film because it's a bad movie. I actually liked this film. It's just that it's a fucking horror movie, and I couldn't handle it. It's just, this is going to be a recurring theme, listeners. That
when we get to the horror films,
I'm going to be like, no. I've been dragged, kicked, and screaming into movies that I've come out loving, of course, but this one I was dragged, kicked, and screaming into just because I don't like horror. And it's such a good horror film that it got right under my skin. And it's funny. It made me feel guilty.
To me, it's a pretty tame horror film.
Which is horrifying. Because if that's tame, what the fuck are you watching when I'm not here?
Oh, boy.
Oh, God.
There's going to be some you have to watch. Some you never will.
No.
There's some that are not on this list. That's fine that you don't watch them.
No, it's not my cup of tea. And I've got really wonderful friends that are huge fans of horror, and they like talk about it all the time, and I'm just like, good for you guys. I don't get it. No, thank you.
I like a lot of horror that came out after The Exorcist.
Okay.
A lot of those, like, Exorcist was definitely one of those movies.
I'm telling you right now, I'm never watching The Exorcist.
That's fine. You don't have to.
But no, like, I know that you and I are, like, already kind of thinking about what, you know, the next list of movies will be, but I'm never watching The Exorcist. Or The Omen or any of those other creepy possession movies. Because although I don't, you know, I'm not terribly religious, I don't fuck with demons.
Don't fuck with demons.
So, like, no.
But The Exorcist was a movie that really showed filmmakers how far you can go, and which horror movies that came out after that just got more and more and more frightening.
Deranged and straight fucked.
Absolutely. And then you get slasher films with Freddy and Jason and Michael and
Eli Roth movies.
And then
fucking any zombie movie
now
ever.
You can get a subscription on the internet for Shudder, which shows even more just films, the like scariest, bloodiest, craziest.
So Andrew
Bowser,
who is a longtime internet producer, he's always been producing things. He's got a great spooky podcast with Jessica Chobot called Bizarre States that I love to death. You guys would know Andrew Bowser as Onks the Fortuitous, or the, I don't know, guy. Like the weird Satanist guy from news clips where he would like cut himself and his character into news clips about people being worried about Satanism and stuff. He's very funny. He made a horror movie. Like a horror comedy. I backed his GoFundMe to help him make that movie. Like, I'm very, you know, proud of him for going out and making a movie about his main character that he wrote and directed and acted in, and it's all wonderful. I don't know if I'm ever going to watch it, because, again, it's a horror film. It is a horror comedy, but it's also a horror film. I don't like watching Shaun of the Dead, because it terrifies me. And I know it's funny. It's a fucking brilliant film, but it's still zombies, and no me gusta. I don't like it, is all I'm saying.
Like I said, Catherine Keener, absolutely just crazy, terrifying. The way she just convinces him to sit down and just say, "Hey, I'm going to help hypnotize you to quit smoking. It's just going to be a simple, like, I'm just going to," and
that was
her just slowly just stirring the tea, and that entire scene,
the clink,
you just hear
clink.
Well, that whole time,
clink.
you can hear just the.
Yeah, it's the spoon on the china.
Yeah. Just that constant circling the
during
the entire conversation. That's all you hear, and it's the same. It's the same audio on a loop.
Yeah, it's the same rhythmic noise
the whole time that they're talking. And she gets him to not only quit smoking, but also admit things that he would never admit after just meeting his girlfriend's mom, after dating her for 4 months 5 months.
Yeah.
And just talking about his mom's death and how he he feels guilty about it, really like digging into his, like I said, his insecurities and how he feels so guilty about the death of his mom. And then we get to see him dragged down into the sunken place, which is
so terrifying.
Yeah, which is where the victims stay while the other consciousness takes over, like we find out later in the movie. And then this brings us to the next morning, where the guests start showing up to the party, and when they see Chris, the first thing they want to do is talk to him and get to know him, but in a way where it's talking more about, because you think they're all just guests at this party, but
who are just awkward white people.
Who are just awkward white people, of course. But then later you find out this is essentially a slave auction.
Yeah.
And
so they're judging him on his physique, on his prowess,
eyesight,
on the size of his dick.
Well he had this, all that. That's all things they say.
And so just it gets, obviously Chris is getting more and more uncomfortable as the conversations go on, because the questions get weirder and weirder, or the comments just get more and more uncomfortable. And like, I couldn't fathom that level of being uncomfortable in a situation. And
never.
But this is the thing that happens to a lot of, people of color in interracial relationships, where when they're introduced to the other family, it's incredibly awkward, and they have to deal with all these microaggressions. And
it's not even something that just happens with meeting your white partner's family.
No,
it also
every day.
Just
everyday
stuff.
At your job.
Customers
at
your
job.
The amount of stories
your
from my
say.
coworkers that have told me of what customers have said to them.
Oh God, I know.
It's appalling.
I mean, I work with an incredible Muslim woman, and the shit people say to her face is just shocking. Some of the shit that customers will say to her at her job. Like, it's horrifying, but I guess older fucking white boomers feel like they can say to people. And I'm not just saying it's just them, but, like, it's just the level of audacity and the lack of humanity people have when talking
just
to people of color, other religions. It's just tact, yeah. It's disgusting, but, like, I'm sure I've been guilty of it accidentally, and I'm so sorry for that, but it's never been intentional. I grew up around a pretty racist person, and I decided at a young age that I wasn't gonna go down that road because I couldn't have that level of hate in my heart. It's fucked. It's fucked what people have to deal with. And that party made me, again, so deeply comfortable. And then finding out that it essentially is... he was being, auctioned off. That he was being paraded around so that
they could feel his
squeeze and poke and
prod and
decide whether or not they wanted to become him.
Which is exactly what slave auctioneers did.
Yep.
People would, and my history teacher in college also made a connection how that is still going on today with. In sports, the way an athlete is paraded around, poked and prodded, judged on their not just abilities but also
strength,
and
all sorts of things.
And that's not just people of color. That's just everybody, and athletes just go through that.
Well, I mean, it's not just athletes; it's also the entertainment industry. It's music.
Yeah, that's true. It's
acting.
It's anything that the public is probably going to judge you by your looks. That's going to be...
Jordan Peele wrote this movie after the first inauguration of Obama. And because I think people back then were like, oh, we have a black president now, so racism's gone. And, I think any person of color was like, no, it's not. Hello? No, it's not. But white people, liberal white people, rich liberal white people were patting themselves on the back, being like, "Oh, good job, we solved racism." And it's like that's not the reality of it. And so that's one of the reasons that Jordan Peele wrote this film, at least from what I read off of IMDb's trivia section, which is really the brains behind this podcast. He wrote all of these experiences. He also wrote all of his own fears. This movie is what Jordan Peele fears the most versus, not just what Chris fears the most. Like, Jordan Peele puts himself into Chris in his own insecurities and fears. What if the white girlfriend is lying? What if somebody steals my brains? What if? Like, yeah, this movie starts off as an uncomfortable horror and definitely just a cringy film because of the race relations. But, like, then it also kind of takes, like, a sort of a magical approach, I guess, because even though it's science-based, it's still kind of magic-based, because how do you fucking replace half of a person's brain with somebody else's identity? Like, yeah, there's good fiction to it. But, like but
all good horror.
But that's also something that people can fear, Fears aren't just real, tangible things. Fears are, well, what if I got possessed tomorrow by a demon who made me do awful shit and then murdered me? Like, where does my soul go?
We meet Stephen Root's character. He plays I'm the one white guy of this whole group that is not an ignorant prick.
Yeah. He's a prick.
He's a prick. Well, I'm saying he's playing the character to Chris's face when they first meet. These people over here, I'm sorry, they're so ignorant white assholes. I know, he's the one guy who didn't just be like you're black, because he's blind, And so that was kind of like a way.
So you're saying he's colorblind?
He was colorblind in that moment. No, I think that was something that was.
Yeah, that is kind of the point of his character, is that it's not a race thing for him.
No.
It's an entirely a sight thing.
He's an art dealer who's blind, and he has been Chris's photography has been described to him, and this information makes Stephen Root's character want to be him, to
see through his eyes,
to be able to see through his eyes and have his eye. Because not only does he want to be an art dealer, but he told a story about how he tried to be a photographer and realized he had a terrible eye for it, and then he went blind. And he desires to see again, but not only that, have that.
Would
talent.
that talent
I think
come
so.
through though?
It's all in the brain. I think the way that the story was saying was because he didn't just say, "I want your eyes."
Yeah.
When he was in the hospital gown, he's like, "I want your eye."
Yeah.
And I think he's talking about the way he can take a photograph because of how bad Stephen Root's character was at photography.
So here's my question. Say the operation goes off with a success. Stephen Root has now become Chris, right? Walking around in Chris's body. Chris's, a small part of Chris's brain remaining that helps somehow not only make Stephen Root see, but also see with an eye of artistic ability, right?
Right.
First of all, what happens to this successful gallery he's got going on?
It was donated to Chris.
Right, and then how? And then B, Chris changes completely, but he's still a known, does Chris go off and become an art dealer? Or
maybe, I guess he couldn't
I guess I didn't understand the end game.
He couldn't have a certain amount of fame, I guess. Or, Lakeith Stanfield's character, Andre, was kidnapped, and he was declared missing by the police.
Yeah.
But he lives.
But Chris is going to come back as a photographer, as a person.
He could just play off the fact that he's Chris, still.
Except with a wildly different personality.
Yeah.
And then what happens to Stephen Root's entire legacy? Has that been, apparently his.
It doesn't matter because it never happened.
No, I know. But I'm like, what's the end game here? How do the taxes work? Where's the will? Does he leave everything that he owns to Chris after having never met him?
All he has to do is just sign a few papers and it's all...
It's true. It's weird, but all right.
Also, I think the men that she's choosing, that Rose is choosing, have no family. Chris's dad was already gone out of the picture before he was even born or something like that, and then his mom died when he was still young. They don't go into who raised him, but his girlfriend is
his only family.
It seems, and she's one of them. So I think nobody knows who Chris even is, really. Except for our hero.
Yeah. Rod, our hero Rod.
Our hero Rod.
Yeah.
Love his character, and I love especially because
he's a good friend.
Well, his character really gets his own scene moments, like multiple scenes in a row, when he's looking for Chris, when he's trying to track down where Chris is. He tries to report him as a missing person. And this was a great way of comedy levity.
Oh god, that scene with the detectives was so funny.
Yeah. So this all happens after Chris is knocked out and tied up. And now we're seeing Rod's point of view of what's happening. And yeah, the three detectives that laugh at him because of how
ridiculous he
everything
thinks
sounds.
That they're using hypnosis to make sex slaves, which they kind of are.
Yeah. Sure. Like the one woman who was...
Yeah, Lakeith's new
wife was definitely having sex with him. The one woman who wanted Chris asked about...
the size of his dick.
Well, it was like, is it true say? Is it better?
Yeah.
So... Obviously, yeah, he wasn't wrong when he said hypnosis for sex slaves.
Just nobody took him seriously because it is kind of such an
it's
out of this world
out of this
concept. Yeah. Apparently, Jordan Peele has a whole backstory for those, for the Armitages. There's an entire backstory for the Armitage family about them being part of the Knights Templar, and obsessed with immortality and something about the Holy Grail. It's kind of why the brothers got a mask that's shaped kind of like a medieval knight's head. But it's not something that's necessarily... It's Jordan Peele's headcanon. But it's not necessarily true canon.
He probably wrote a history for his characters. And
he knows who these people are, but it's not that important to what the movie then becomes.
Sure.
Yeah.
I also found it interesting, the grandmother in the young woman's body. Mm-hmm. When Chris said that he wasn't a snitch and I won't rat you out, she didn't understand what snitch or rat you out was. But then, a tattletale.
A tattletale, yeah. She didn't
because
recognize
she's
the modern
lingo.
Yeah.
For somebody who has been out of it for...
And also, what a great job the actors do who've already been taken, right? Lakeith Stanfield, Marcus Henderson, who plays Walter, the grandpa / grounds person.
Yeah.
And then Betty Gabriel, who plays Georgina. All three of them were so good at being like the monotone, like uncomfortable white boomer at the same time as the glimpses of like their real selves and who they eventually were. I mean, especially Lakeith being able to not only have the moments where he's the white guy who's been put into his body, but also the moments where he's able to snap out of it.
The way the actors and actresses they
all do a fantastic job.
Switch on a dime.
And then, like, what happens to him, though? I mean, at the end of the movie, he's gone off with his white... He's just stuck? Like, he's the one left alive.
Hopefully somebody takes a picture of him again and snaps him out of it, because now it
can't be undone.
It can't be... You can't go back.
Like, do you think that Chris and Rod go off and try to save him? Or do you think...
I hope.
Yeah, like, I kind of hope they do, too. I guess that... Jordan Peele isn't necessarily interested in a sequel. Of course, the movie studio is, but Jordan Peele himself
is like... when it makes $250 million, of course you want to try to get that.
But Jordan Peele is like, only if I can, properly beat the first one, if I can make a better story. So we might never know, but you do kind of feel bad, because now Lakeith Stanfield is the only character out there who's still in the sunken place.
Right.
Everybody else... Well, but not necessarily, though, because we see... other people, like, so when you see Rose's like lit or like
picture,
a stack of photos of all of the different men that she's done this to,
the obviously planted thing with the door open because they wanted him to see it.
Did you?
Well, because
do you think that's the reason?
As soon as he sees it, it's randomly open. Who purposely puts a box with all these photos that, if found,
but what's
will tell
the point
of
putting the box there? Just not
I think
saying
it's for the
you're
audience.
fucked.
I think it's for the audience mostly.
Okay.
But it was very convenient that as soon as he finds it, that's exactly when the whole family attacks him and kidnaps him.
But still, all of those people have been, were they test subjects?
Some of them were
test
some of them didn't
fail?
work out. They did say that sometimes Jeremy got a little too murdery.
Yeah.
And I don't think every brain transplant works 100%.
Yeah.
They
no,
kind
he
of
also
alluded
mentions
to it
that
a little
the
bit.
more cognitive people are about what's going to happen, the more successful.
They've obviously have done
tried.
this many times and been like, this is more successful when we talk about it.
I just wonder how many times they've
happening.
done it, because clearly we've seen 3 successful brain transplants, but then, what about the other half dozen pictures that were in that box? What happened to all those men? Were they failed experiments? Were some of them successful? I'm just worried about, what's Lakeith doing in the sunken place? Is he okay? I want to save him.
Like I said, somebody just needs to take his picture with a flash, and maybe he'll get out of there, even though he's missing.
Also,
most of his
you
brain.
would think, I'm just saying, you would think that if that entire family is murdered and the house is burned down, all of their rich white friends are going to be like, oh, what happened to our friend?
Also, if I know we're kind of on this subject a little long, but even if Lakeith Stanfield did get out of it, if Andre woke up as Andre finally, he, like they told Chris, he is a passenger and is going to experience everything, and the things that would do to the human mind I don't think Lakeith, the
There's a reason why the
grandfather,
grandpa kills himself.
Yeah, he kills himself
Yeah.
because I don't think they can.
That dude knew what sort of abomination he had become.
Right. And
then poor Lakeith's character is obviously off humping that old white woman all the time. Like, I can't imagine he's thrilled with that. I have to wonder about those sorts of things, because that's where my brain goes. You know, my brain's like, wait a minute, there's some guy in the sunken place, let's go save him. But you're right, he'd come out of that and he'd be fucked up. I'd rather the character be dead and free of this than still stuck in with somebody else's brain controlling your body. That's horrifying. I
believe Stephen Root's character bought Chris for $10 million, is what I'm guessing is...
I thought he flashed his hands twice. I thought it was 20.
I think he was just saying 10 going once, 10 going twice, and then Stephen Root holding up his bingo card won it. I think that's because these were very, very rich people, and I can't imagine it was like just $200,000 or something.
That was interesting. The whole essential slave auction scene.
Yeah.
The fact that it was silent and sort of set over this beautiful moment of Chris and Rose
telling her about
him like promising to be loyal and them saying I love you, presumably for the first time.
And he tells her everything about what happened to his mom.
Yeah.
And everything comes out in that moment. Yeah, very touchy
that
moment.
Poor dude.
Very, yeah.
Oh God, he's gonna need so much therapy after this.
So much. I like when Chris wakes up from being knocked out. When they finally kidnap him and tie him to the chair, he's looking. I think it's the visual of him looking at this deer head mounted on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Almost, you get the feeling that his head is going to be mounted on a wall soon. The way this family is acting, you're still, like, going to this movie the first time, you still aren't quite sure what the hell is happening. You have a feeling that because of what happened to Andre and him snapping out of it for a moment, that's when you start really feeling like, all right, they are trapped, they're showing a body, there's something happening there. But yeah, just the visual of Chris waking up and staring at this deer head, staring back at him, also ties into the beginning of the film, them hitting the deer, which ties into him and his mom's hit and run. And then I love how it comes back with him using the deer head antlers to stab
Bradley
Daddy.
Whitford, yeah.
I have seen this movie probably 5 times now.
Okay.
Maybe 4. But I always forget when it gets to the part where he is knocked out by the
spoon.
The spoon and teacup on the TV. When he gets knocked out by that, and you see him right before, he's scratching at the armchair with the stuffing, and then it looks like he's like sniffing it or something.
Yeah,
like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
I always forget that when Jeremy goes in to put him in the wheelchair to take him to get his brain taken out.
Yeah.
I always forget that he put the stuffing in his ears every time. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, stuffing in the ears. I don't know why I forget it happens, but it's just part of the story that
I think that when I saw him scratching at the arm of the chair, I thought that he was going to get like a nail or something, or like there was something inside of the chair.
Yeah.
Either that had been left behind by somebody else or something that was a part of the chair that he was going to use to get his way out. But ultimately that's what he did by literally using cotton to stuff into his ears.
Right. There's so many layers to this
movie.
So
many layers to this movie.
Just shows what a genius Jordan Peele is.
The deaths of the family were pretty gruesome.
Yeah, I love him going through each family member.
One
first
by one.
Knocking out Jeremy with the
bocce ball, maybe,
or croquet.
Yeah,
or some rich white person game. But then, Dean is skewered by the deer antlers and
knocks over a candle, which starts a fire. Why would you have a candle in an operation room?
Right.
Like, I get that it's a ritual, but come on,
not
guys.
a great place for especially when when
is there oxygen in that room?
When Dean is facing the camera and he's he's all prepped for surgery. He's got his gloves on and everything, and his mask is down just for the. I understand it's
The
for the
theatrics
audience,
of it all,
for us,
yeah.
building up the drama and
But
letting
in
us see his face.
2024, we know how to handle masks.
Yeah, touching the gloves to his bare face to pull his mask up. Now his gloves have
completely
face
contaminated
bacteria on it, and we overlook that kind of stuff. But yeah, and then Missy getting her throat slit by some kind of, I forgot what blade.
It was just really sharp,
sharp
blade of some sort.
He had it on him. Well, he gets it later when he's fighting Jeremy again. After you think Jeremy's dead, but he comes back.
Yeah, it must have been something in her office, like a very sharp letter opener or something.
I can't remember.
I also thought that it doesn't show Missy's death. You just hear it, you don't see it. So I always kind of thought that maybe it went into her eye. Her eye and into her brain.
I thought her throat got slit, but they don't show it, like you said. Which, I mean, everything they do show, the fact that they don't show something like that.
Yeah, that is interesting. Maybe maybe Kathleen Keener has some sort of like no blood and gore in her
show myself
contract
being killed.
clause.
You never know. And it could have just been Jordan Peele being like, all right, we've shown so much gore. Maybe we don't have to show even more. But I still love him just going family member to family member, killing spree. He gets Jeremy again when Jeremy comes back. And then, which ends with the biggest psychopath of them all, Rose, who's the last person at the beginning of the film that you would think would be. But the all-white suit, her hair tied
She's
back in a ponytail.
She's a fucking Terminator is what she is. She's the goddamn Terminator going after this kid.
Or eating Fruit Loops a loop at a time, and then
taking
drinking
a sip of milk
through a straw.
And looking at
so psycho.
Looking at more black men on the internet.
Like, who's next?
Who's next?
Right.
Fucking who's next?
Who's next?
Who's
the next slave up for auction?
Oh
essentially.
God!
I'm on the prowl.
So uncomfortable.
It is so terrible. And then we get to the like you said, Terminator running after the car with her rifle. Nothing's gonna stop her. It doesn't matter what gets in her way.
I mean, although at this point her whole family's dead, so what's she even trying to?
It's just pretty much Grandma was in the car with him because he felt guilty about hitting her because of his mom died from a hit and run. So he's like, I'm not gonna run. I'm gonna get her and take her to the hospital, which is what I took it for. I'm not gonna be the guy that killed my mom.
Yeah.
And it's but. Bad decision because she wakes up and
causes a car crash.
It's Grandma.
Yeah. It's Grandma.
Grandma's
Surprise.
back.
I'll be back.
And car crash. She dies, and now it's just Rose and Grandpa left. Okay.
Yeah, Grandpa, who's a former almost Olympic runner, who is coming after fucking Chris.
He ran at the Berlin Olympics.
Yeah, no, he almost ran.
Oh, he almost. That's right.
He was beaten by Jesse Williams.
Famous.
Yeah. That whole sequence was so good. Also, Rose kind of goes out like the Terminator. She is shot. She is strangled. She is
left for dead.
And it seems like it takes a lot to kill her.
It's not till the very last frame you kind of just see her like that death stare.
Yeah. And then how is that explained by the authorities? Because presumably this whole thing is going to be like the cops are going to figure it out somehow. Again, how is it not then kind of linked back to Chris? Right. But then if it's linked back to Chris, he's got his own wild story. But who's going to believe him?
But
especially
these days, a black man kills an entire rich family, white family. They could play it off as he breaking and entering, or they were fighting, but nobody's left.
Nobody's left? But do you think that all of their rich white friends who were hoping that they too would be able to transfer their consciousness into another body? Are they going to go after him, or are they just going to be like, shit, we're fucked now?
It does seem like Dean and Missy are the only people who know how to do this transfer. And so now these rich white people who wanted to spend their money on a
cure for immortality,
a black slave,
a new body,
they are out of that luck now. And
but do you think they're going to go after him, or do you think that
they could? Maybe that's what part 2 could be.
I still like
him running from
what happens
these
to poor
crazy
Lakeith.
white people.
Justice for Lakeith is what I'm saying.
I know.
That poor dude.
Grandpa through the post-traumatic stress that he's feeling after being finally released from his bondage.
Yeah, brought back from the sunken place.
Like, he rightly kills Rose. I'm sure him and Rose had a relationship.
Yeah, at some
this
point.
is probably something what Chris would have done in the future.
For God's sakes, Rose, I guess,
was freed.
technically, if you think about it, slept with her new grandpa and grandma, because she brought them both in. Like, ew.
No,
Yeah.
I know.
But...
Well, yes. Okay.
But then again, that's why Chris thinks that Walter, the gardener, the groundsman, has a thing for Rose, is because he does kind of talk about her with some affection.
Right.
But it's an
affection of a grandfather.
Is it an affection of a grandfather, or is it a little bit of the guy who was, once her boyfriend, who's now her grandpa? That's
sure.
fucked
I
up.
think in the moment it was supposed to be the affection a grandfather had for his granddaughter.
Yeah.
But because of the way he was saying it, like he said,
she's a special
yeah,
girl.
well, like Chris said, it's not what he said, it's the way he said it.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because this random groundkeeper should not be talking about this woman the way a grandfather would. It seemed weird
it was
coming
just
out of
weird,
that kind of that man's mouth.
Mm-hmm. The best scene in the movie is when Rod gets out of that fucking car.
Yeah, you think like as soon as you see the red and blues,
the cop car, you're like, shit.
Fuck. You think it's gonna be? You think it's gonna be the cop from
Yeah.
the beginning of the movie coming back and not believing what just happened, and arrests Chris for it. And then you're like, oh shit, how's he gonna get out of this one?
Mm-hmm.
But of course, you don't have to worry about that because fucking Rod is here to save the day.
And of course, Jordan Peele did consider having the movie end with it being the actual cops and with Chris going away for jail for all of his crimes, but knowing that they couldn't happen again. But I appreciate that Jordan Peele lightened it, because in the wake of all of the horrific murders of African Americans at the hands of the police, Jordan Peele didn't want another one. He wanted to show essentially a happy ending as opposed to a real ending. And that's why, we see Rod, and Rod comes to the rescue instead of...
Rod, who may have
so
stolen
pure?
that car. I mean, I know it's an airport security. I know it's, but
Yeah,
I don't think his
access
boss knows that he took the car way out into the country.
Yeah, maybe he needed it. Maybe he was like, hey man, I gotta borrow this car, and off I go. But man, the only thing I wanted to see more than Rod was see Rod with the dog.
Oh.
Because I wanted to see the dog there. I think the dog should have been there to help poor Chris.
I'm glad we didn't get a dog, because the dog was said to have had IBS or something like that, and Rod was not very happy with that. But it's a cute little dog.
It was such a great moment of just
great ending,
good friendship. It's a good ending. This is a well done movie. Again, I've said it a couple of times now. This movie is phenomenally well made. I still didn't like it because it's a horror film. But I liked it, but I'll never watch it again. This is not going to become something that I watch my annual viewing of Get Out. I've seen it. I can say that I've seen it. I will not be watching it again. Thank you, because I don't.
As soon as Jordan
movies.
Peele comes out with or announces his fourth film,
hasn't he?
He may have maybe look it up.
I'll look it up.
Positive. So yeah, as soon as his fourth film is announced, and especially when it has a date attached to it, then I'll have time to watch his last three leading up to, even though they're not really connected whatsoever. That doesn't matter.
Anthologies.
He's one of those directors that I've been lucky enough to start following since the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's always fun to keep, instead of there's still plenty of Scorsese and Steven Spielberg films that I've never seen. Plenty of directors out there whose films I haven't seen. I usually try to, like I've said in the past, I'm a completionist, and some of my favorite directors, I've seen everything they've done. But, there's many other directors who have so much work, 15, 30 films. Yeah. You're like, oh boy, that's so much to get through.
But they've also, been doing it.
They've been doing it since
forever.
50 years, which is why they have such a big filmography. So
potentially one day you could have seen 25 Jordan Peele movies. If he makes that many.
But the nice thing, this is also something that I've
since the beginning. Yeah.
When a show drops, like a Netflix show drops all 8 or 10 of their episodes all at once, I'm not I'm not a binger.
Yeah.
So it takes me a long time to get through the whole season. Whereas when you're watching a show that's week to week, I can keep up with one episode a week.
It is
and
very
so
hard.
It's like homework,
binge.
and I completely understand when
you need
people
to have time.
when people say that they wanted to get into the MCU, or maybe there's a new movie that they'd like to watch, but they didn't keep up with everything. So now it feels like homework to be able to complete the other 30, 40 films that come before it. You know, it's fun to be with a musical artist, director, any of those where you can be with them from the beginning, go each project at a time. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree.
So Maggie, this being your first viewing,
and only,
I'll say my personal how many stars out of 5? 4.5 for me. I find this to be an absolutely fantastically well made, very thought through, very well directed, especially for a debut film. And I can barely find any faults in it, other than I can't really find any faults in it. Why I'm only giving it 4.5 stars, though, is a question. I don't feel like it's a 5-star movie, though.
No.
But let me hear from you. How many stars out of 5 are we doing?
So here's the problem. On the one hand, I want to give it 3 stars because it's a horror movie, and I can't fathom giving a horror movie anything above 3 stars. But I can appreciate, as a fan of movies, as a fan of the art of filmmaking, I can deeply appreciate what this movie is, the fact that it's a debut, the fact that it is such a well-done film, acted, written, scored, shot, everything is just phenomenal across the board, right? It's a great movie, but it's a fucking horror film, and I don't mess with horror films. So I can't give it a 3.5 because that's ridiculous, because it doesn't deserve that. But I'm not going to give it a 5 because it's a horror film, and I won't. So I'm going to give it a 4, just for the sake of, yes, this is an incredibly well-made, well-crafted film that gave me a panic attack. It was so well done. But I can't give it any higher than that because I fucking hate horror. So, like, I can appreciate it for what it is as a film. But, like, this is not going to be my favorite movie on the list, guys. It's not. I don't. It terrified me and it gave me a panic attack. Like, what do I do? You know? Like,
I'm going to change my answer. I'm going to give it a 5.
What?
I can't because I love horror films.
Yeah.
And in the last 8 years, specifically in the last 8 years, I have really been drawn even more to horror films because of how fascinated I am with low budget. Like, we don't have a lot of money, but we're gonna it's a strong enough script that it's gonna make it that much better. Or we're not gonna rely on the money to make this movie. We're gonna rely on our creativity and our genius brains to make a really good movie. And I honestly, I understand why you gave it a 4 because you don't like horror, and so you got to balance it out a little.
Not my
genre. But like I said, this is his best movie in my opinion, and I cannot find any faults in it.
There's also a reason why it's. I mean, I don't think we can technically consider Parasite a horror film. Although it is kind of a psychological horror film.
Thriller.
Yeah, that's a fine line between psychological thriller and horror, in my opinion.
Sure. Horror, to me, is just a lot of
guts.
Blood and
it's murder.
Jump scenes, or not even jump scenes. Like, there are no cheap jump scenes in this. I think everything supports...
There's nothing cheap in this movie.
No.
There's nothing that
everything, like I said, everything is very well thought out.
That's cheesy.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Nothing's cheesy.
But
I find it all... Like, the cheesiest thing is just the fiction of it.
Yeah.
Of transferring brains. But if you're going to label it as a horror film, then there's certain sci-fi elements of horror films, whether it's supernatural or magical or just making up science. It all works in the horror genre to me. So like I said, I can't find a fault.
Like I said, I respect the hell out of that, and there is a reason why this is the highest rated horror movie on this particular list. Because off the top of my head... Actually,
what, of other horror movies we're covering?
Yeah.
Well, besides Nope, we also have The Shining,
Well, yeah, but so...
Hereditary.
The next movie that I would consider a quote-unquote horror movie would be American Psycho, and that's like 11 plus episodes away.
American Psycho is a movie where you're following a slasher.
And
like
then after that,
the killer in a slasher film.
It's a good handful, like half a dozen more episodes until we get to The Shining. Like, there's not a lot of horror movies on this list, traditional horror movies, but there's a reason why this one is so high up, because it is
absolutely
an incredible film. I just, it's not my cup of tea, especially not in a white and blue teacup with a silver spoon. Get away from me, Kathleen Keener.
Stay away from me. So, Maggie.
Yes, Caveman?
I have 2 questions for you.
Kick it.
So, would the presence of the man, the myth, the legend, Oscar Isaac, have made this movie better?
No. I don't think so. I can't imagine where he would have fit in, especially as a Hispanic man in this story that's very much about the African American experience and white people. No, I don't think that him being in it would have been... It would have been a distraction more than anything.
If he was in it, it would have been like a really stereotypical Hispanic.
Yeah, which I wouldn't have wanted to see, and I don't think he would do.
And it wouldn't have fit the story.
And even if he was like a news reporter on the TV, I'd still just be like, eh.
And when I say stereotypical Hispanic, I mean he would have to fit somewhere, because the whole movie has like these stereotypical, or there's stereotypes in this movie that are created for the sake of telling a story about stereotypes.
The reason of the movie.
And and I feel like his character, because everybody was so white.
Yeah. That you couldn't have fit in Oscar Isaac's perfect face anywhere. That would have fit.
And I too don't believe his character, or himself playing any kind of character, whether it was a friend or... Yeah, it just wouldn't have fit.
No, it wouldn't have worked. Yeah.
But question 2, though, is if he was in this movie, what character would you have him play?
You change 100% nothing about this film. Not a single line, pronoun, shot, nothing. You change nothing of this film, and he could have been Missy. Just literally, it's the exact same movie, but as Oscar Isaac as Missy instead of Kathleen Keener.
So,
and I just him sitting there with the teacup and the silver spoon, just tinking it and being like, "Tell me about your mother." Yeah, no, I just want to see that for my own, just for my own shits and giggles. Because who else could he have been that it would have made any sense? You just don't change a goddamn thing about the film from top to bottom and just superimpose him over her.
Wow.
Just for the funny of it.
Oh, boy.
You weren't expecting that answer.
That is I was not. That was a choice. I like it, though.
Good. Well, that was this week's episode of Movie Mingle on the brilliant Get Out. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making it. Of course, please follow us on Instagram and Letterboxd at movieminglepod. You can also email us at movieminglepod@gmail.com for all your suggestions, comments, love, and hate. Whatever you want, send it our way. Although it'd be nice because we're just 2 people doing our best. We've got Nolan Fest coming up, which we are very excited about, in which every other movie will be a Christopher Nolan movie. We have also got at some point in June, we don't know the exact date yet, but at some point in June, we will be dropping a bonus episode for Tron Legacy, a personal favorite of both Caveman and mine. And we will also be doing another bonus episode in June for Pride of To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, which is just the best goddamn movie, and I cannot wait to talk about it. Until then, join us next week where we will be talking about Ratatouille, the beloved Pixar film, and it'll be a very nice palate cleanser after this week's scary nonsense. Until then, take care, friends. Go mingle. Bye.
Are you an effective team?
We are an effective team.
Let them fight.
How did you just do that?
I'm a really good lawyer.
Here on Caladan, we've ruled by air power and sea power. On Arrakis, we need to cultivate desert power.
Welcome, Mr. Beach. What's that bar? I'm a little confused.
Well, we wouldn't want that, would we?
I don't want to brag, but I will. I was in the Avengers.
The Avengers?
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. What is that?
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Toga, 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 toga.